This is Tyrese Halliburton, and you're listening to Setting the Pace.
Happy Tuesday, Pacer Nation, and welcome back to another episode here of your go-to Pacers podcast, Setting the Pace. I'm your host, Alex Golden, joined by the president of the Taylor Peter Fan Club as we get ready for Summer League. Facci, how's it going?
I didn't think you were going to say Taylor Peter. Just assumed Jermaine O'Neal. I was already fist pumping.
You got the fist pump going.
I guess at that point you could have went in any direction. But Taylor Peter, hey, I'm excited to see some more in Summer League. Big year ahead for him. And anytime you're a two-way player going into year two, it's never promised. Just ask Enrique Freeman.
Yeah, exactly. We got Pacers basketball coming up, Facci, here on Friday night as the Pacers will be taking on, I believe, the Philadelphia 76ers in the first action. I don't remember all the games in their first ones. Philly, I think, and their last one is Minnesota. They play the Cavs, and I forget the San Antonio. I don't remember. I honestly couldn't tell you who they play in Summer League, but they basically play Friday, Saturday, Monday, Wednesday. So that is the schedule coming up here this week. So be on the lookout for that. Other than that, I'm really excited to talk about all the moves that went down in the Eastern Conference because, Facci, there is a lot of change happening. And we talked about it a little bit, but I want to start off here. Jaylen Brown going to the Philadelphia 76ers, Paul George, Boston Celtics. How much were you shocked by this move, and how much do you think this changes the landscape of the Eastern Conference?
Who wasn't stunned? I really the return, just obviously not good. I mean, Paul George has not looked like himself for quite some time. He's making way too much money. Last year was a 25-game suspension. He's been injured. There's just a lot that you could say of but trading him in the division,
yeah,
that's kind of crazy. That's something you really don't see too often. So for a team like Boston, I think we all kind of felt like Jaylen and Jason Tatum at one point, where there was going to be some sort of power struggle or whose team will it really be. But after this trade happened, it felt like there was reports of they didn't want to include some role players for Giannis. They didn't want to agree to a 3-year extension for Giannis, only a 2-year. It's Giannis at the end of the day. Now it's Giannis or Paul George. To me, I was stunned by the move. I think it makes Boston a little bit less dangerous. I think it makes Philly a lot more dangerous.
I agree. I think Philadelphia is going to be really good because of this. And you can say what you want about Jaylen Brown. I think the combination of him and Tyrese Maxey with VJ Edgecombe is deadly potentially because of how fast, how defensive minded they can be. They're going to be really quick. And look, Joel Embiid kind of feels like the outlier with that group. He cannot stay healthy, but if he is healthy, they're going to be really good if he can stay healthy. If he can't stay healthy, they're still going to be really good. And they seem to me like a team that does make a lot of sense for LeBron James if he were to sign with a team that he's looking strictly for fit, because that would be a really solid fit. They do need a 4 pretty badly, but even if they don't, they got a player we're going to talk about here later in Dean Wade that I think could play as a starting power forward. So really good player there. But I want to move on now to the Miami Heat. They got Giannis Antetokounmpo, and that's their big move that they're doing. They're obviously going to have to make some signings around him. We'll get to one later. But when you look at Giannis with the Miami Heat, how much do the Heat actually scare you? And do you think that this move alone gets them into the top 4 of the Eastern Conference?
I don't. But I do think that they were stuck in that play-in territory for the last few years. And it felt like you could almost kind of pencil, almost like the last few years, it felt like the Heat, the Bulls, the Hawks, those were really the play-in type of teams. And I do think that Miami now maybe could be more of a top 6 type of team. I like to see what else they do because they definitely lost some good depth with this deal, but they got by far the best player available that you could in Giannis. And I think it was about time that Miami actually hit on one of these players that they were rumored to get. So I do feel like the Heat, who had been fading and kind of in that 8th seed range, 8 to 10 range for the last few years, finally feels like they got a jolt in the right direction. And Giannis and Bam, definitely going to be a feared duo, but it's still not enough.
This will be the first time that Giannis plays for a general manager / president and Pat Riley and a head coach and Eric Spoelstra. Well, they'll probably have more say on what happens within the organization than he will. And I think that's good for Giannis because
I think it's good.
I feel like for too long in Milwaukee, Giannis just kind of had reign over what was going on. And you think about what happened when Spoelstra took over the Big Three and how LeBron tried to get him fired. And Riley was like, he's my guy. He's my coach. you're going to have to figure this out. And they won 2 championships. So I think that because Riley has Spoelstra's back, he's got the pedigree, he's got the resume, been there for so long. Like, this kind of structure I think Giannis needs. And I think Giannis could have a breakout year.
I think he could too.
I mean, he could just really have a breakout year for where he's kind of been at the last couple of seasons with Milwaukee. I think he's going to be motivated. I think that, they are a unique fit with him and Bam. I don't love it. And then Wiggins, like, he shot like 40% from 3 last year. Can he sustain that level of shooting on more attempts? I don't know. Like the signing there, but, they're still kind of missing that 2 guard. I mean, if you think it's Tim Hardaway Jr., we'll talk about him a little bit. Sure, that's fine, but they got to add more shooting. They got to add more depth to this team. And I agree with you. I think that they are probably not going to be the best regular season team, but they might kind of get their crap together towards the end of the season and be more of a threat in the Eastern Conference. Like, that is one team I would really not want to play in the first round if you're Indiana in like a 4-5 series just because of the size. But I do like how Indiana's size has improved in the front court with the addition of Zubats, because you get a guy that can embrace that physicality a little bit more than Turner was.
No, definitely. And I do think, when you bring up Turner, I mean, Turner was the guy kind of snitching or throwing people under the bus to, let people know that Giannis was the guy that was typically late for the bus or the plane or anything like that. So it just felt like you had too much star power, too much stroke in Milwaukee that, we've always heard about, like heat culture, the heat way and things like that. So I do think that Giannis will be kind of out for revenge, because last year, just an all around kind of sad and unproductive type of year for him, given like the injuries that he faced, how bad the team was, missing the playoffs. I think he'll be out for blood.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I just don't see a world where Giannis doesn't have one of his better seasons in a while.
Yeah.
Only reason he wouldn't is because of injury. And that is definitely something to, be worried about. But that is one thing to keep an eye on there. Now, the other one that's interesting is Kawhi Leonard to the Toronto Raptors. This was surprising, especially since we've got no ruling yet on the aspirations and incident. What's going to happen with Clippers and their whole thing? Like, how can they trade the guy that was like at the biggest forefront of this scandal in the NBA? And just like not hearing anything for almost over a year now, it seems a little bit sketchy. But the fact that they were just like, we're going to go ahead and trade him in the last year of his deal when he's that close with Steve Ballmer, makes you feel like something might have been said to Steve Ballmer behind the closed doors, and he is the richest owner in the NBA. And like, at the end of the day, people can act like everything's fair and everything's legal. It's not. It's there are corrupt things that happen in sports. Just being honest with you, at the end of the day, it is entertainment just as much as it is a basketball league. So I just thought it was fishy. I like the fit in Toronto. I still want to know what they look like overall. They still need some center depth, but he's drastically better than Brandon Ingram. I'll tell you that.
When Kawhi Leonard's on, he does remind people that he is one of the best players in the league, and he was awesome last year. He was finally, I can't say finally healthy. He played 65 games, but for Kawhi, that's as good as it gets. I'm looking at it right now. 65 games and 37, 68, 52, 52, 57, 69. Like, for the last 10 years, 65 games is the second most he's played. So I think Steve Ballmer knows what he's been through, that at best, this is a guy that will play 65 games. He's got a legal situation hanging over his head, and he's due a lot of money. Ooh, just held back a sneeze. I'm telling you, this is being a pro over here. All right,
That's pretty impressive. Vince McMahon would have liked that.
I mean, who really sneezes during a show? You got to try and keep it together. But regardless, I think in this situation, Steve Ballmer, he's a businessman, and to know are you going to commit to signing Kawhi Leonard, a guy who just turned 35, a brand new deal after this, when he doesn't play back-to-backs. He's got a legal situation. I think it makes a lot of sense to trade him. And I also think for the Toronto Raptors, you're thrilled to have been able to trade for him. He's someone that you won a championship within 1 year. No, he might not be that guy, or he had one of the greatest postseasons anyone's ever seen. He was incredible. But I do think for a Toronto team that was kind of blowing in the wind ever since that championship, you now can make a run at some things. You do still have a decent amount of this core left. Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett, Kawhi Leonard, if you can add to it. this team could be in the mix. We can't say a top 4 or so, but like definitely play into maybe pushing for that 6 seed area.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. Like they're kind of in like that Heat range to me,
Yeah,
where
I
it's
agree.
like I like the makeup of the team. What were they last year? The 5 seed.
Yeah, they were, but they were like such a fluke 5 seed. Like, they came out of
They took the
nowhere.
Cavs to 7 games. I mean,
Yeah,
they were
but
like a surprise team last year. I
they
don't think
were.
anybody really expected that, but like now that they've re-upped the coach's contract, um, he's an interesting coach. I think that he's a good coach, but I feel like the way he complains about officiating almost every time I watch him, like I get kind of tired of hearing him talk. But I do think he's a really good coach. I think they're a pretty solid team. Don't love their team. I like their team, like you said. I like their depth. I like some of the players they added with like Alan Graves and whatnot. But I don't know. I see them as a team that's going to be hard to beat in a seven
Yeah,
game series. Like they're going to
gotta
make it a
respect them.
dogfight. And with the Kawhi Leonard, like if he's healthy, like that gives them a chance to win any series that they're in.
Yeah, it
So
does. It
that's
does.
why I think, like, for a team like he said he wouldn't sign with Detroit, but, like, Detroit to me, like, they're another team I guess we didn't mention last episode that could be after Trey Murphy the 3rd. They
They
probably
need
have the
something.
resources to do that, and they need something like that because the biggest move they've done so far is they're waiting on Jalen Duren to get a cheaper contract with him, but they bring in John Collins. And I understand why, like, John Collins is a good fit next to Jalen Duren type of player, but they bring him in for 3 for 51 million, so or 54 million, I think. So it was like
Yeah.
17 or 18 million dollars
Yeah.
like that. Decent. I think it was 351. I was right. A good cheap signing, I guess you could say, for a starting power forward. But like they let Tobias Harris walk to the Spurs, who was making around the same amount of money, and they were like. I remember Jimmy Bickerstaff saying like Tobias Harris is like someone I will fight for every single day. Like
He played well in the playoffs.
he
He
did.
definitely did.
So they just kind of like punted on him for Collins, and I really don't know if that's much of an upgrade or not. Uh,
Yeah.
Probably is a little bit just because Collins is a little bit more mobile and things like that. But
Could be a little bit younger, I believe, too.
you're probably right on that because you
Not
know
probably not by much, but,
I don't
he's
know, Tobias
28.
Harris. Yeah, Tobias Harris was a part of the,
He's been around
uh
for a while.
was a
Chris
part of the
Middleton deal, like, back in the day, I believe.
yeah,
Okay, so it's actually about, like, wow, Tobias Harris is about to turn 34. So, yeah,
yeah,
it's like
so
a
6 years
6-year difference.
difference.
That's a solid difference.
Yeah, and he's a lob threat, which is really nice to have. Can shoot the three, so you can go small ball 5 with him if you want because they did trade Isaiah Stewart. So basically, he's kind of the Isaiah Stewart replacement, in my opinion, a little bit. But he'll probably start. I don't know what they're gonna do, and they got to find a replacement for Tobias Harris. But um, I don't know. It's fine. It's a good move, I guess. Like I like it, but I also just like Detroit is like to me falling fastly from like,
They
oh, they're the
are.
1 seed. I
The
think that they're
1
more likely
seed.
a play-in team this next season than they are
It's
a top 5 team.
crazy how much, like, for Detroit, like, I've always said that, and I've said this before, but, like, there's levels to this. You can't just come out of nowhere, be the 1 seed, and just, like, all of a sudden you're good to go. I felt like the East was a little bit weird last year. Obviously, the Pacers going through what they did, like the Bucks just completely were nowhere to be found. Like there was a couple other teams, like Toronto was like the 5th seed. Like it was a weird year in the East. The East is very talented now, and
Mm.
the Detroit Pistons have not done enough to maintain their spot. I mean, with Boston just getting Tatum back, the Knicks being as good as they were, like who knows what will happen with Cleveland? Toronto, we just talked about. Like we already mentioned about Philly upgrading. Like the Heat that were the 10th seed in the play-in, they've upgraded. The Pacers, who had the second worst record in the East, they should definitely be in the mix of things. So like, I just feel like we named so many teams that did something to get better compared to just adding John Collins.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that because like I wrote an article today, and or I should say for Sunday afternoon, I wrote an article, and I had some people from SI join in on the conversation, and it was like, are the Pacers better this season than they were 2 years ago? And my whole thing was like Kelly Oubre Jr. was their big offseason move, but
Yep.
like that was the third biggest move of the moves they've made because the first big move they had was trading for Zoo, and number 2, it's Tyrese Halliburton coming back healthy,
Absolutely.
and that's the biggest one. So it's like you're getting a healthy Halliburton back who's going to be stronger, wiser from sitting out. Like he's just
Mhm.
going to be a different player, and like the level of like physicality that he's going to add to his game is just going to be better because he's had time to put on muscle and time to focus on that. And he looks a little bit more swole than he did when he was finishing out his NBA Finals run. So I think the Pacers obviously got better. But just real quick, two different kind of scenarios where they're close to similar, but like the Hornets offloading LaMelo Ball and Miles Bridges, the return they got from that, and then the Bucks, their return for what they traded Giannis for. Out of those two, what do you kind of think about both of those teams and the moves they made?
I think I've been waiting for Charlotte's like follow-up move. Like, I think Charlotte short term definitely took a step back. I think they needed to do this though. They needed to take the step back to take a step forward because I've mentioned before, but as long as LaMelo Ball and Miles Bridges are like your top two, two of your top three or so guys, there's gonna be some problems. Like the way that your team is gonna carry itself, like that's just not like the leader that you want. I think that there's certain guys around the league that could be very talented, but they might not necessarily be the one to say I'm the franchise guy and have everyone fall in line. I felt like they needed change. The Hornets were a fun team to watch last year. They caught fire. They went 44 and 38. Basically, after the first 20 games, they were like incredible. But I think that the return that they got for LaMelo Ball, I don't think necessarily was all about, like, trying to get better. I think it was, like, playing the longer game. "Hey, you know what? We traded LaMelo Ball. We got this massive trade player exception. See how they use it. They got some more picks. Naz Reid's a solid player. Okay." Bridges, I think, was just, "You know what? LaMelo Ball is going. We wanna send you off and
In-house.
kinda start fresh with, like,
Yeah.
a team built around Brandon Miller, Con Knipple, and so on."
Yeah, honestly, like I think what it was too, it's like LaMelo's not been healthy. And so the
He
finally a
hasn't.
year where he's healthy, you trade off of him and you get 3 swaps from Minnesota, and that feels like the next big superstar to request a trade is Anthony
Maybe.
Edwards. Tim Connolly is one of these GMs that is like always willing to make these big moves. And so if you're Charlotte, you just kind of, you bank on something crazy happening with Minnesota and them kind of imploding, and maybe you think, oh, we're sending over a double agent and LaMelo Ball to kind of blow this thing up and get us
Yeah.
our money back in terms of picks. So I like it, and I think Naj Reid's like a really good player. Like we both have really liked Naj
I've
Reid.
always had that
Thought he
soft
was a little overpaid for a backup big, but like they were clearly like playing him as like a starter at times with how many
Yeah.
minutes he played.
He was like a
He played
super
some
six
three
man.
at times, which is
Yeah.
wild. But like we were looking at him as like a Miles Turner replacement for a while just because he
Mhm.
can shoot the three.
Yep.
And I mean that kind of does just kind of help them out. I like the draft. They had Christian Anderson is a very nice pickup, and then Hannes Steinbach as well from Washington. Like just another player that can like give them some like front court minutes. So, like I like the direction they're going a lot. As for Milwaukee, like sure, like I don't know what the best return was, but as you kind of see now what Jaylen Brown's value was across the league, or at least from Boston's standpoint, didn't seem very high. And so that's probably why they went with the Bucks trade instead, because if they were going to try to flip Jaylen Brown, like people would already know they're going to do that, so they wouldn't be offering as much.
Mhm. Yeah.
So like they clearly couldn't get their picks back from Portland, or I think that deal would have happened. I think that's pretty obvious. So to me, it's like they got some good players. Now they just got a lot of question marks in terms of what do they do with Kuzma? What do they do with Miles Turner? What do they do with Tyler Hero? What do they do with like a Kevin Porter Jr. who picked up his option? I think there's a lot of moves coming, but I do like how they've kind of cleaned their books a little bit. They got off Giannis. They got all the Heat picks that they wanted to kind of give them something to look forward to, because they don't really have a lot of second round picks either to deal with. So I think Milwaukee's, as weird as it sounds, heading in a better direction than
I
they
agree
were.
with that. I agree with that. The longer they kept Giannis, unfortunately, they were in a spot where, like, I don't think it was gonna get better. I think this was a team that was tapped out. They were already behind the scenes, off the payroll, paying, like, 3 coaches, which is crazy. They just continuously just fired coaches after every, like, year and a half to 2 years. They're in that crippling situation of waiving and stretching Dame's contract, which is eating about, like, $22 million per year. Turner incredibly underperformed. I do think that they're gonna be a team that's probably not gonna be good next year. They won't be really bad. I think they'll be, like, flirting with that, like, 10th seed type of area where you're just, like, a team that's not winning, but you're, like, not far out of, like, the last spot for the play-in, and then they probably look to make some moves at the deadline, like, kinda offloading whomever you can. I just think that right now, Turner's got to have negative trade value. I just can't see a team looking to trade for him unless they're actively dumping someone else. Like when we talked about with like Toronto, like if it was going to
Pelicans.
be like a Jakob Hurtle like type of swap.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think the Pelicans could make sense too. They've always liked Turner. It looks
Yeah,
like I mentioned the last episode they're looking to add some bigs, so like that makes some sense. But like, here's the thing: Milwaukee, they don't have their control of their picks from
yeah.
28, 29, and 30. That's all with Portland. They have their pick this year, I'm pretty sure, in 2027, unless it's a swap. So I'm not sure. I'm gonna look it up right now. Um,
I'm
but
not
I'm
entirely
curious.
sure if they do or don't. It might have been
I
last year that they had their pick, but
well, they did have their own pick
I,
last year in
yeah, I know that
26.
was the case. I don't know if it's 2 years in a row.
I'm looking here. So they have their 2027 first round owned, but will be swapped to New Orleans for more favorable of the 2027 pick, with
There you go.
Atlanta receiving the least favorable. So
Mhm.
still, like, this is the year to kind of be bad.
I agree. I just think that it's like, yeah. I mean, they're in a tough spot, but like the players that they have just don't have trade value like that. Like Kyle
Mhm.
Kuzma has absolutely regressed the last few years from like when it looked like he was like averaging, I don't know, whatever it was, like 20 points per game or so on the Wizards to where he is now. I just feel like guys like Kuzma, who averaged 13 points per game last year, compared to 22.2 when he was with the Wizards. To me, that's such a steep decline that I'm like, this is a role player right now. It's what he is. He is an absolute role player that probably on the next contract would find himself maybe signing for that like taxpayer mid level 6.2 or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I put out some trade ideas on the Bucks page on Bucks on SI, and like the amount of people responding that were Bucks fans are like, "These are terrible trades." I'm like, "What do you think you're gonna get back for Kyle Kuzma,
Yeah,
Miles Turner, even Tyler Hero on an expiring deal for $33 million?" Like, you're not gonna get back value, and you don't wanna get back a bunch of players, that
no,
don't really fit your team, and you don't wanna do, like, a 3 for 1 because he's making so much money. So, like, I threw, like, an Emmanuel Quickly trade out there for Tyler Hero because I think Hero would make some sense. Now, I threw in Kevin Porter Jr. as well to give them another point guard and send some. I think I sent Grady Dick back before he was traded. Like, that was, like, the deal. And they're like, "This is a terrible deal. Like, we're not trading Kevin Porter Jr." I'm like, "You guys are that attached to a guy on a $5.5 million expiring
yeah,
deal?" Like,
that's crazy.
it's just funny to hear what fans think of their own
Oh, of
teams, like,
course.
especially when, like, I'm not around their fan base that much, so it's kinda like me just kinda spitballing and guessing for some of these trade ideas, but I'm like, "I'm trying to be fair here. I'm trying to get you guys picks back. I'm trying to get you guys, like, even seconds." You know what I'm saying? Like, but, like, the center market's kinda drying up. Like, who needs a center and who wants to pay $27 million for a guy like Miles Turner? Like, I don't know. And, like, Kuzma, he's an expiring deal, so if you're trying to, like, get off of somebody, like, that's what I could see. Like, they could salary dump him
Yeah.
somewhere that has more money involved, and then they pay the price of giving a pickup. So, I don't know. But I think that's all interesting, Flash. We do need to move on here quickly, so we're just gonna do rapid fire. I'm gonna just go through all the, uh all the transactions that have happened or the agreed upon deals, and I want you to tell me if you like it, love it, or hate it, and we'll just go quickly instead of going through, like, details
Yep.
and everything. So, start with Boston. Mike Conley to Boston. What do you think?
Yeah, like it. Yeah,
Like it.
yeah,
Yeah, I agree. I
I'll
like
do
it.
it.
Mitchell Robinson to Boston.
Like it.
I like it a lot for them. Andre Drummond to the
One
Knicks.
thing I will say is, though, it is very interesting with Neemias Queta and Mitchell Robinson that now they have, like, a decent amount of money committed. Like, you got, like, 2 players that you're
Yeah,
basically paying, like, between 13 to, $16 million for.
but that center rotation is
It
significantly
it's
better than
very
what they had
solid.
last year.
They are shored up at center.
Alright, Andre Drummond to the Knicks. What do you think
I
about
like
that?
it a lot. I like it a lot. I think they couldn't have done better than Drummond.
Yeah,
I'm
I
a
think, Andrew Claudio, from Knicks
Yep, yep,
Film
mhm.
School, like, basically said, "Good regular season center, don't
Yeah,
know what I'll do in the playoffs."
who knows? But, yeah, the spot they were in financially, he made a lot of sense.
Alright, Kelly Oubre to the Pacers.
Love it. Love
The
it. Love it. I don't know what we would have done without him. I
Yeah.
truly don't.
I'm really interested to see the details of the contract. I wanna see if it's a flat deal where it's like 8.25 this year, 8.25 next year, or if it's like 7 million this year and then
I mean,
9
I
so
know. Imagine, like, that would be so Pacers if it
yep,
was.
because it's all
I
guaranteed, so he's still gonna get paid the same
I
amount of
know.
money,
I
but
I
they get
I
seven
hope.
million this year, that gives them another, like,
I
$3 million
know.
dollars to deal with work with.
That would be classic Pacers front office to just be like, "Oh, they pulled it off."
It
There
just
we go.
we're spitballing here. We're not saying we know anything. I just want to make sure that it's very clear. When the details probably will come out on this after we've already recorded this. So that's why I don't know why I'm doing this. Dean Wade to Philadelphia. What'd you think?
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
Anthony Simons to Philadelphia.
I do like it because the value of what he's going from like 28 million to 6 million is like you can't possibly say, yeah, man, I don't like the fit, or that's an overpay for that money. They got a good guy.
Yeah, I think that I think Anthony Simons might have ruined his value moving forward.
I absolutely agree with that. I cannot see him ever bouncing back financially and getting more than like this. I just think that like the ship sailed on him being a $20 million guy or even a mid-level guy.
I mean, he was good with Portland, but he clearly got overpaid, and hopefully he saved that money. That's all I'll say.
So.
What about Tim Hardaway Jr. going to the Heat?
Yeah, I like it. I thought it was a good role player for them. Money wasn't bad at all. It was a little bit more than what he'd been making in the past, and obviously that's someone that I was a bit intrigued with.
All right, Aaron Wiggins to Atlanta.
I really like that. I really do.
Yeah.
And I know I'm saying, like, I really like this compared to some bigger names out there, but, like, I just like what Atlanta's done the last year or two. They made some smart moves.
They really have. They've done a good job. I agree with you. I like it. DeAndre Ayton to the Washington Wizards. Not a bad flyer. They didn't really give him anything.
I think for them, it's a good move now. When you talk about, like, your bigs having that type of combination, if you can say Anthony Davis is a 4, but like Davis, Sarr, DeAndre Ayton, like there's a lot of talent there, and even in terms of where those guys were picked, those are top 2 picks. So Ayton now at this point on a flyer, $8 million. They probably will trade him at some point.
I would agree, or just cut him out, right? Because he is expiring. Vucevic to Orlando.
It's a cool story. He's going back.
That's how I feel. I don't think it moves the needle like people are acting like.
I know.
Because I think he's going to get played off the court in a playoff series once again.
I like a good reunion. So him to Orlando, that's where he had his best years. It's cool.
Yeah. All right. Mo Wagner to Brooklyn.
He got paid. Didn't he got paid? That's like a Brooklyn Nets move right there. He made like over $10 million, right?
Was it that much?
I think it was.
I thought it was like 2 for 19 or 2 for 18.
Well, I mean, if that's the case, that's close enough.
Maybe I'm wrong. I'm just blanking, but I just think that them trading off Nick Claxton.
Right. I think it is. Like it's 2 years, 19 million. So he got like just under $10 million. To me, I don't think he was worth
more than Oubre.
That's what I'm saying. Like that's the Brooklyn Nets being like, we got to spend this money. Like, what do we want to do? So for Mo Wagner, he was obviously coming off of a torn ACL. It's hard. You can't really judge him off of that. The year before that was a career year. But they even gave him the mutual option to either opt in or opt out. Like it's like I don't know how he worked that deal, but props to him.
They didn't have any center depth. I'll tell you that when they traded Nick Claxton for Julius Randle, so made sense. All right. Dorian Finney-Smith getting traded to Charlotte.
He got paid before that, and I didn't realize how unproductive he was.
It didn't take.
It didn't take. I didn't realize until like Steven Adams clapped back at someone on Twitter and was like, "Yeah, he was hurt last year," and the guy was like, "This is one of the most unproductive signings like anyone's there." Like Dorian Finney-Smith was one of like the free agent winners of the previous year. He averaged 3.3 points per game, 2.5 boards, So going to Charlotte, he should be much better.
33 years old. They needed a veteran to go there. They needed some depth. I think it makes sense. It makes more sense for them to get off like a Grant Williams as well now too. This one was a little bit surprising, and just because of the situation this team's in. But Norman Powell to the Bulls.
What are the Bulls doing? Like, what do you do?
This is a great move by the Bulls. I think it's a bad move by Norman Powell.
Well, I mean, it's
Bruce Brown 2.0. I mean, it's a straight up redoing of what the Pacers did for Bruce.
I definitely agree with that. Like Norman Powell, in my opinion, was like, I gotta capitalize and get paid. I gotta get paid, and I don't care where I'm going. I just think like you can't waste like back-to-back 21 point per game seasons like that. So he goes to the Bulls. Probably is bound to regress there. Bulls aren't going to be a good team, but like that's the definition of cashing in.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see what the Bulls do, but they've tried to copy and mimic the Pacers front office of style the last couple of years, It's like they were like, oh, we're going to play fast like the Pacers now that we got Giddey. And they played really fast for like the rest of the season 2 years ago. And they played really well. And they beat the Lakers on like a crazy buzzer beater, I think. And so like that's where it's really exciting. But I don't know. I understand what they're doing because they don't really they have space. I got to bring on people. Pacers had a bunch of money one year. They couldn't really go out there and sign anybody that made sense. So they overpaid for Bruce Brown, and that got him Pascal. I mean, could this get them the next player that becomes available for the Bulls? I mean, if somebody like Trey Murphy III stays in New Orleans and all of a sudden, boom, now he's back. I mean, it makes sense for them to trade Norman Powell to get him because they'd have the salary to match up. It's just interesting. Last one here, and I put him on the wrong.
33 years old. He's bound to regress. I think, just like the point that you made over there, like he'll be traded at some point, and it'll be a good move overall.
Yeah, team option for year 2 as well. So I mean, that's just smart for him to get the money up front and run with it. But yeah, last one here, and I put the wrong team name because he left Cleveland, but Keon Ellis going to Brooklyn. We talked about this one a little bit already, but interesting fit.
This is another one where it's like, this makes sense for Brooklyn. I feel like they should take a flyer on him. I think it's a good fit for him. I think he's going to have an opportunity to really play and like develop there. And I think overall, good move for both sides.
Yeah, so I mean, there's probably going to be more moves made, and we'll go through those as they happen. Maybe tomorrow we'll go through some of the moves that have been made on Monday or Tuesday since we're recording all of this on Sunday, but still just an exciting time to be a Pacer fan because you've got a pretty good roster. You've got a healthy Zubats playing in FIBA basketball. You've got Andrew Nembhard looking really strong with Canada and all these different players out there balling. And then Summer League's coming up, so we're going to see some of these guys in action. Jalen Slauson, Braden Smith, of course, who else am I missing? Taylor Peter. That's what I was thinking. I was like, I know I'm thinking there's another big one that's out there. Kawhi Reeves Jr., somebody I'm really excited about seeing. Wrote about him for the on SI page, just talking about like what he could bring to the table and make a big opportunity for himself. But like, I love Summer League because you always see these guys kind of break out of nowhere. Like we saw Darius Acuff, have a big stat line, but it took him 29 shots to get there.
Yeah, exactly.
Cameron Carr had a great game on Sunday night for the Lakers.
Darren Peterson had a big one.
DNP. Can you believe they're giving him that nickname already?
That's great. But I mean, last year, look, the Johnny Furphy hype train was real. I mean, he was giving you something to get really excited about. And man, we did see there was that graphic over the weekend, where it's like some of the Pacers' best lineups, and Furphy was in 2 of them last year. So it's really unfortunate to not have him out there. But you never know who could be that player that could potentially blossom, this year.
Absolutely, Pacho. Well, we're going to sign things off here, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode here of your go-to Pacers podcast, Setting the Pace. If there's anything you would like us to touch on, please leave that in the comment section below on the YouTube channel. We really appreciate that. I know there were some people that were asking for hey, I didn't get a chance to submit a mailbag question, so please do it on this episode so we can make sure we don't miss anything. There's been a lot that's been going on, and it's just hard to keep up with everything. So with that being said, Facci, if you're open the Pacers, stay healthy during this international play and in Summer League. Hit me with those 3 words.
Let's go Pacers.